You have to wait for the ritual garland. Here we go. Krishna Krishna. That's good. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Itidamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Two evenings ago, we had a little discussion on 3 other verses from Bhakti Sandarbha. I'll assume everybody here is acquainted with Jiva Goswami and his Sandarbhas. This particular Sandarbha has several parts. The title that Jiva Goswami gives to this section is the power even of Bhakti Abhas, even in the form of an offense. So the grammatical composition of that phrase is a little awkward, but that's what it is. At least that's Bhanu Swami's translation of his summary of this Anuchhed 153. There's a few things in this section. Even by Bhakti Abhas, one can destroy all sins and attain the feet of Vishnu, even from a subhuman form of life. So that's this premise. This is his style, or the system of his writing. He makes declaratory statements that are supported by Scripture, and then he makes the scriptural statement. So the scriptural statement, this statement is supported by or based upon a teaching from Vishnu Dharma Purana. In Vishnu Dharma Purana, there's this narration about a mouse. And the mouse had a liking for drinking ghee from the ghee lamp on the altar. And one unfortunate day, while the mouse was drinking ghee from the ghee lamp, his body caught on fire. And when he caught on fire, the body caught on fire, he died. But even Abhas Bhakti, in his next life, he became a queen. And the queen had a very natural and simple aptitude to offer ghee lamps on the altar of the king. And she did this every day. And according to Vishnu Dharma Purana, or Vishnu Dharmottara Purana, she attained Vaikuntha at the end of her life. So from a mouse to a queen to Vaikuntha. Fast track. So Abhas Bhakti is very powerful. And then similarly, Abhas Aparad is also powerful. So we know that we have 10 offenses against the chanting of the holy name that are identified in the writings of Rupa Goswami. And one of those is Artha Vada, the doctrine that the glories of the chanting of the holy name are exaggeration. Artha Vada, the doctrine of exaggeration. And he, Jiva Goswami, supplements this statement by making reference to a text Now, I did a little research. Which text is this from? This is Bhagavan, or the personality of Godhead, speaking to Bodhayana Muni. The reference, after researching, is from a different Brahma Samhita than the one that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu found by the same name, but a different Brahma Samhita. That's where this reference comes from. And you see in the purple letters, Uttartha Vadam. So the doctrine of exaggeration. If, Bhagavan speaking to a Muni, if a person hearing the various results of chanting my name has no faith and rather thinks the results are exaggeration, I throw him in the greatest suffering, where his limbs are afflicted with various pains in frightening samsara. So don't make that mistake. One of the 10 offenses, arthavad, that it's exaggeration. Here's another. Even the glories of nama are factual due to this aparad of considering these glories to be arthavad. We are unable to see the result of our performing bhajan. So one can be doing the chanting of the holy name and not have full faith that it's really going to take us to where we want to go. It's not really none different than Krishna's. So if without that firm faith, then it borders on, well, that's a nice statement, but it's exaggeration. And commentary to this says, even if the neophytes, due to their being in the lower stage of devotional service, make a show of constantly chanting the holy name of the Lord, because they commit offenses to the holy name, not only this one, but any, or combination, they cannot relish the transcendental taste of the holy name. So aparad blocks the effectiveness of the chanting, the taste for chanting. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, we're going to read the verse. They can, however, get in touch with a pure devotee of the Lord and rectify their bad habits. Otherwise, they shall continue to be stone-hearted and unfit for any treatment. So this is, it's drawn, it's cited in Bhakti Sandarbha. Now, Bhakti Sandarbha was written before Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is making a comment on Jiva Goswami's comment. And Jiva Goswami's comment has something to do with this 2.3.24 verse. So I'll read the verse. You're all quite familiar with the verse. Whoops. Certainly that heart is steel-framed which, in spite of one's chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration, does not change. When ecstasy takes place, tears fill the eyes and hairs stand on end. They're not experiencing these symptoms, the ecstatic symptoms, the bhava symptoms, even though rigorously or regularly, with faith, presumably, they're striving to concentrate on chanting, but they may not come if their heart is steel framed. Come to the stage where the softness of heart from the hardness of heart becomes ecstatic symptoms. That ecstatic symptoms is expressed outside, but it's from the inside. I'll just read, it's a long paragraph, I'll read the first paragraph. We should note with profit that in the first 3 chapters of the second canto, a gradual process of development of devotional service is being presented. In the first chapter, the first step in devotional service for God consciousness by the process of hearing and chanting has been stressed. And a gross conception of the personality of Godhead in its universal form for the beginners is recommended. By such a gross conception of God, through the material manifestations of his energy, one is enabled to spiritualize the mind and the senses and gradually concentrate the mind upon Lord Vishnu. That's the second chapter. The Supreme, who is present as the Supersoul in every heart and everywhere, in every atom of material universe. The system of Pancha Upasana, or recommending 5 mental attitudes for the common man, is also enacted for this purpose, namely, gradual development, worship of the superior that may be in the form of fire, electricity, the sun, the mass of living beings, Lord Shiva, and at last, the impersonal Supersoul, the partial representation of Lord Vishnu. They are all nicely described in the second chapter. But in the third chapter, further development is prescribed after one has actually reached the stage of Vishnu worship, or pure devotional service. And the mature stage of Vishnu worship is suggested herein in relation to the change of heart. That's, pure devotional service, a change of heart, is the title of the chapter. So, in this Anuchhed 153, Jiva Goswami is focusing at an entry point in this particular verse, and Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur is making his comment on Jiva Goswami's comment. 2:3:24. A complete progressive march on the return home back to Godhead will depend on the instructions of the revealed scriptures directed by a realized devotee. This is Vishwanath's consistent declaration. So as is the nature and the custom of Jiva Goswami, he is at the feet of Rupa Goswami and calling to Rupa Goswami to guide him in his writing, in his life. The 9 stages of bhakti, they're outlined in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and they begin with faith. You all know the 9 stages. Adaushadhatatak sadhusanga bhajana kriya nartanivriti syat, etc. So he makes reference, and the beginning is faith. However, someone may not have faith, or they may be mixed. They may have more faith in something else. And the example that he is given is King Nriga. So King Nriga had more faith in acts of charity and not the same degree of faith in bhakti. So as a result, he had a problem. And the problem came when, on the right side, this is a very old Krishna book illustration of this history. There's a king who daily would give away many, many, many cows, a large number of cows. And he would give the cows in charity to brahmanas. On one fine day, some misfortune happened. And that misfortune was that the cow that he gave to a certain Brahmin wandered back into the herd of other cows, and that he didn't recognize the cow that he gave to a second Brahmin was already a cow that he had given to the first Brahmin. So the first Brahmin came back and accused the king. You've stolen the property of a Brahmana. You gave me the cow and then you took the cow back and gave it to someone else. You're a thief. You stolen the property of a Brahmana. The king was a little surprised at his anger. And he then offered, I'll give you 10 cows. I'll give you 100 cows. No, I want that cow. And because you've taken the property of a Brahmana, I curse you. You become a lizard. He had just given him a cow, and now he's going to become a lizard. And sure enough, he became a lizard. That's the picture on the other side. And good fortune by his being cursed by a Brahmana to become a lizard, because he became a lizard in the bottom of a dry well in Dwarka. And one day, the boys in Dwarka were out playing, and they saw the lizard at the bottom of the well. And being boys, they wanted to get the lizard. And so they tried this and tried that and tried the other thing, and nothing, they couldn't get the lizard out of the bottom of that dry well. So they informed Krishna, can you help? So Krishna knew exactly how to help. He could extend his arm to the bottom of the well. He's very flexible. And he touched the lizard to pick the lizard up and bring the lizard so the boys could play with the lizard. And when he touched the lizard, instantly the lizard became transformed into King Nriga. He was released from the curse of the Brahmana by being touched by Krishna's hand. And then, because he's a learned Brahmana, at least in his previous life, he knew how to honor and glorify Krishna, and he honors and glorifies Krishna very nicely. And as you can see, there's other persons that were seeing this whole scene, and they were pretty amazed. This isn't just a lizard, this is a king. A very educated, elevated personality, but not a king, a Brahmana. So Krishna blessed him, and off he went, released from that curse of the Brahmana. But the story is being narrated in Bhakti Sandarbha as an example of Arthavad, the consequences. And it was a good deed, but good deeds sometimes have their mistakes. And the mistakes have their consequences. In this case, pretty severe. And of course, becoming a lizard wasn't that was the bad part, but that built into that curse was getting delivered by Krishna, getting the touch of Krishna. So it was really a nice thing. Then comes another example, and I'm looking at Ram Raghava. You circulated this document, right? Very good. So you all should have it, and I'll just summarize, which it's a long document. But Jiva Goswami, makes reference to another example where there was a king, and he had a queen. And the king and queen were Vaishnavas. And in this Vishnu Purana narration, they were observing a particular vow during the month of Kartik. So all very good, very good. Vaishnavas observing Kartik Vrata. However, in the course of, they went to the Ganges to carry out this Vrata, and the king saw a friend of his martial arts teacher. And the friend that was the martial art teacher's friend was a bad guy. like an offender type person. I forget the phrase that's used. Huh? Heretic. So what heretic means that they're like a non-believer. So he, out of affection for his teacher, his martial arts teacher, at a time when you don't engage in exchanges with others, you just the vrata included silence. He broke silence, and he went and spoke some kind words to the heretic. And his wife knew this isn't right. You don't break silence. You don't talk to a heretic. So she tried to dissuade her husband from doing this, but he was doing. So she then offered some prayers to the sun god to become relieved from the offense. However, when her husband died, she entered into the funeral pyre of her husband. And she, in her next life, became a queen. And a very beautiful lady. And she was searching for her husband because she had a next birth. And she had some clairvoyance or some kind of acumen, and she found out that her husband had become a dog for that offense, minor offense. But he became a dog. And so she took care that this document describes from Vishnu Purana. She took care of the dog, she fed him nice food, and she was able to explain to the dog who the dog was in his previous life, her husband, a king, and because of this offense, she'd become a dog. And so he was repentant. He somehow acknowledged and had some remembrance of his past life. But he died. We get exactly the cause. And she then still alive, the dog then became a jackal, then became a wolf, then became a vulture, then became a crow, then became a crane, and then became a peacock. This doesn't say was she in the same body as this beautiful queen, but she had this capacity. She tracked down the next life, the next life, next life. And then when it came each time, she was able to track him down, remind him of his past lives. Finally, he became a peacock. And somehow or another, this document describes, King Janak, not to be confused with the King Janak of one of the 12 Mahajans, and the father of Sita and Urmila, but a different King Janak, meaning in this dynasty of the kings of Videha, the king's title was known as Janak because one of their predecessors was with that name, and so the subsequent kings also became known by that name as a title, like the descendants of like Yadu dynasty or Vrishni dynasty or something like that. So he was performing a yagya, and in the course of performing the yagya, there was some sacred water, and he sprinkled some sacred water on the peacock. And as a result, the peacock quickly became the son of King Janak. And this queen, his wife, had taken birth, and the king, or the father of the girl, wanted her to become properly married, and she declined. Instead, she married this son of King Janak. And they lived happily ever after in Vaikuntha. It's a long story. Vishnu Purana. Now, not all of this is narrated in all of the versions of Bhakti Sandarbha, but rather references made and little research, and that's the reference, that little history. And the purpose is there's consequence. Even if you're King Riga or you're King Shatadhanu, and you're doing good things. But if there's either an offense of artavad or violating a vrata that's to be observed, and you're breaking that vrata principle. His wife knew, the queen knew, but he did anyways. So there's consequences. They can be rectified. In this case, it was rectified. But all this is being narrated as illustrations of the main point, or one of the main points, that when executing devotional activity, there may be offense. So one should know what those offenses are and avoid the offenses, because there's consequences to offenses. That's the idea. There we go. As a consequence of this, the peacock was next born as the son of King Janaka. When he had grown to become a young man, the princess married him, and at the end of that life, they lived happily ever after. So one of the main points of this 153 Anuchhed, it is part of a series of Anucheds that are describing the fall of the jiva. They're falling from bhakti. The falling from bhakti. One is situated in bhakti, but the starting point of beginning with bhakti can be hampered or destroyed, or one can fall from bhakti. And here's the 5 causes. Crookedness is the first one. Kautilyam. And crookedness as the opposite of being straightforward or simple. That we've heard that term before. Simplicity, we're going to hear it a little bit some more. And lack of faith in Scripture. Bhagavan Nishtha Chavakas Twan Anuradivinivesha, absorption in things that detract one from firm faith in Bhagavan. Bhakti Shaitilyam, slackening of bhakti. Bhaktivinoda Thakur outlines these very nicely. We're going to see some reference to him as we go forward. Swa bhakti adikrita manitvam, pride in executing acts of bhakti. So pride is final. Slackening is prior to that. Absorption in things that detract one from firm faith in bhakti. So these are different Sanskrit terminologies that are ways of describing the opposite of sharanagati, things that break the principle of surrender. So we'll start with the simplicity one, or arjavam. This is a standard characteristic of a brahmana. They're simple, as opposed to crooked. Kautilyam. Here's an example that he gives. This is from Canto 3, Chapter 19. This is the section of Kapila's teachings to Devahuti. The phrase that's used here is rijubir, which has the same meaning. It's the opposite of being straightforward. But by the unpretentious, straightforward, or simple process. What grateful soul is there who would not render loving service to such a great master as the personality of Godhead? The Lord can be easily pleased by spotless devotees who resort exclusively to Him for protection. though the unrighteous man finds it difficult to propitiate him. So this is the straightforward or Arjavam principle. I was getting it backwards. The unpretentious, straightforward, and simple principle of living. And someone who is like that, how can they fail to take shelter of the personality of Godhead? But those that are crooked can't take shelter of the personality of Godhead. Here's from Skanda Purana, Parashar Muni is quoted by Jiva Goswami. Impure fools who are crooked, kolat manam, kutilat manam. Impure fools who are crooked do not develop bhakti, chanting or remembering of Govinda. So it's a cause of falling from bhakti, being deceitful or crooked or not straightforward. Here's his example, Jiva Goswami's example. He makes two references. One is from the section of the Mahabharata where Krishna is visiting Hastinapur. He was in Indraprastha when the fervor was increasing about the conflict that was being precipitated by Duryodhana. So Krishna, they made a request, please see if you can make a peace settlement. We don't want this big war between cousin brothers. Somebody's at the door and they can't get in. Did you lock the door? The garage is open, but they don't know that. Okay, now they know that. Okay. The nice painting on the far side, that's Duryodhana and a nice big chair, and a much smaller chair, Krishna's being given a seat. We see in the foreground there's Narada Muni, and there's, many VIPs in this big assembly hall in Hastinapur. So Krishna had come for a peace settlement. He came twice, but this one, Duryodhana wanted to butter him up. He wanted to win Krishna's favor because Krishna's the cousin of, they're all cousins, and he has a big army. So he was thinking maybe he can, if he takes my side, we'll be victorious. He was always calculating like that. So the way to butter him up, it's also Vaishnava etiquette, or it's culture. He wanted to, he's a guest, please come to my home and take a meal. You know the story. So Krishna replied, giving two reasons why the answer is no. One is, one can eat if there's hunger, but I'm not hungry. And one can eat if there's love, but here there's no love. Because your animosity towards the Pandavas, particularly towards Arjuna, is so intense. Your attitude of disdain towards the Pandavas, knowing that they're very dear to me, is there's no love between you and me. So I decline your invitation. Thanks, but no thanks. I'll go where there's some love. So we know what he did. He went where there's love. And then the whole series of events took place at that place. So because there was crookedness, deception, not straightforward on the part of Duryodhana, there was a consequence for that. And next, we're going to hear this little lack of faith example, because this follows behind the first one. Duryodhana's lack of faith, despite Krishna showing him his universal form. And the Mahabharata history goes like this. During one of his visits, Krishna took the opportunity in visiting Hastinapur to visit Dhritarashtra. And he said to Dhritarashtra, "Can you please persuade your son to just turn the kingdom over to the rightful owner of the kingdom?" And Dhritarashtra said, "I would, except he's too obstinate. There's no way." Like he put it all on his son. He's too obstinate. He won't agree to that idea. So Krishna then said, "Well, then lock him up and put him in jail, because he's a criminal. He's stolen property that belongs to somebody else. It's the property of the." He gave the explanation according to the law of Manu, the law of our culture, the law of our ancestry. We're all from that same ancestry, and he's a violator of the law. He's to be punished. Put him in jail. Somehow, what Krishna's advice to his father, to Dhritarashtra, got to Duryodhana. And Duryodhana told Karna. And Duryodhana and Karna got together a plan. Let's tie Krishna up and put him in jail. So when Krishna was visiting another day, the next morning or something, he was greeted with Karna and Duryodhana and other men, all with their ropes, and he understood right away what they were doing. And first he smiled, and then he laughed. And when he laughed, he showed them his universal form. And when he showed him his universal form, they fainted. But later, Duryodhana said, "Krishna just has some magic tricks. I don't know what his magic tricks are, but that's all it was. And it's not. He's nothing special, and he's just got some magic tricks." He didn't have faith, even when exhibited the universal form of Krishna. Lack of faith. Jiva Goswami gives another example. Sri Prahlad, who did have faith, "It's not by my own power," this is Vishnu Purana, "that the tusks of these elephants, which were as sharp and hard as the tip of a thunderbolt, got smashed. It's only the effect of continuous remembrance of Bhagavan, Janardana, which destroys all great calamities." So he was protected. He understood in Vishnu Purana, he was protected by these dangerous weapons, sharp and hard as the tip of a thunderbolt. He was protected by his constant remembrance, which is one of the 9 processes of bhakti. So faithlessness is followed by absorption in things that detract one from firm faith in Bhagavan. The example given is Bharat Maharaj. Now, there's a sub description of all this. His distraction or absorption in the deer and neglecting bhakti was the consequence of an offense, because he had achieved the stage of bhava bhakti, and to fall from bhava bhakti there was some offense. But the offense manifested in the form of absorption in an object other than Bhagavan. He fell down from mystic yoga, austerity, and worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consciously, he slackened in his bhakti, which is another one of the stages. Besides absorption in things that detract, slackening of bhakti follows. It's exactly what he did. Because of this slackening of bhakti, one becomes increasingly fixated with the happiness and distress related to one's own body and mind, to other living beings, and to natural phenomena, the three kleshas. Those who are exclusively intent on bhakti, however, are disinterested in such types of material happiness and distress. That's an advanced stage. But in the advanced stage, that surpasses the advanced stage, carries one beyond the miseries of material existence. And then the final one is pride. The classic example is Daksha. Here he is, because he was proud of his beauty and his power and his everything. He had a dislike for his his daughter's husband. So there we see there's Lord Brahman, there's Lord Shiva. And there's Daksha railing, criticizing, Lord Shiva's tolerating, kind of. But, he brought himself into hot water. He lost his head from this offense. Then comes the positive. This is not Jiva Goswami. This is something that simply speaks the same thing or messages the same thing. From Manashiksha, there's this nice little recording of one of the verses of Manashiksha. For one who desires, that there's a verse in which Raghunath Das Goswami described, for one who desires eternal association in the spiritual realm with Krishna, there's a procedure. And one of them is hitva dambam, giving up pride. Sada dambam hitva. Always in all circumstances, give up pride. This is this fifth item. So here's the verse. And there's a nice recording. Volume. So sada dambam. This is sada dambam hitva. Always giving up pride. That's the connection with this 5 stages of falling from bhakti or having bhakti destroyed. Continuing in Bhakti Sandarbha 153, truth is blocked by 100 obstacles. Austerity is blocked by 1,000 obstacles. Bhakti to Govinda is blocked by 10,000 obstacles if one is insincere. So this word sincere circles back to this being straightforward, or the opposite of being straightforward, being crooked, kautilyam. So as an insincere person is not going to develop bhakti. You don't get past the first one, you're going to fall prey to the other 4 by principle, by design. The whole bhakti process can be summarized as follows. The advanced devotee who chants the holy name of the Lord in a perfectly offenseless manner and is friendly to everyone can actually relish the transcendental taste of glorifying the Lord. This two requirements or conditions: offenseless chanting and a friendly attitude or disposition towards everyone. Not the selective kind, but the friendly to everyone. The result of such realization is reflected in the cessation of all material desires, etc. That's the bhakti process outlined by Jiva Goswami in the Sandarbha, and the fall starts with this crookedness, or not being straightforward, or not being sincere. It's a nice definition. Here's the list again. Kautilyam, ashraddha, lack of faith in scripture, absorption in things that detract one from firm faith in Bhagavan. They're sequential. Slackening of bhakti, and pride in executing acts of bhakti. Now, in the case of Daksha, it wasn't exactly pride in his activities of bhakti, it was sacrificial performances. But pride in, supposing someone does something that's done very nicely, supposing somebody prepares a nice feast, probably a lot of people making arrangement for cooking for this wedding. Oh, such nice prasadam. And the person who helped, or the persons in the team that prepared the prasadam, that they feel a lot of encouragement from that kind of appreciation. Or anything, dressing of the deity, or conducting of a festival, or something. Kirtan, something. And acts of bhakti in which one takes pride, that means there's a disappointment if you don't get honored. It's just the flip side, happiness and distress. Here's Bhaktivinoda Thakur on this point. When you chant with your fingers on the mala, you should feel that your fingers are touching the lotus feet of Krishna. Now that's Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And most of us probably don't feel or touching the lotus feet of Krishna. But he is feeling like this. So, I'm going to go back to the beginning. Summary points, and then we'll see if there's some discussion. Purposefully, this was not too long, because sometimes the details of Jiva Goswami's writings can make your head spin, and it's hard to follow them. So he makes, the starting point is that Bhakti Abhas, even from a subhuman form, is very powerful. And similarly, aparad, even unknowingly performed offense, it's very powerful. The consequences are sometimes quite significant. We heard some different examples of how that's true. And therefore one should be alert to what bhakti is and what the impediments or obstacles for bhakti, or the offenses in the execution of bhakti, are. And one of the ones that he's given emphasis to is taking the glories of bhakti, glories of chanting, or the glories of bhakti, as exaggeration. It's not really like that. The Arthavad idea is, it's there in Scripture because Scripture just wants to pump you up and get you, inclined to do something that's good for you. But it's not really all those nice things. It's just encouragement, but an exaggerated encouragement, not really like that. So one who has that idea is making an offense. And then there's these other categories of offense. This is not specifically just a section outlining the types of offense, because that's another section that's in the Bhakti Sandarbha. But the stages of falling from bhakti, once bhakti is instituted, then these 5 stages are presented. Let's go through them again. Crookedness, lack of faith in scripture, absorption in things that detract one from firm faith in Bhagavan, slackening in bhakti, and pride in executing acts of bhakti. So that's a nice list. How to fall from bhakti, in case you wanted to. And it starts with crookedness, or not being straightforward, or not being honest with oneself and with others. See if there's some discussion. Way in the back. Ivo. Go ahead, just speak. You have got a good voice.
Wonderful class, Maharaj. Just wanted to understand, out of these 5,
Yeah.
out of these 5, which one is the most painful to get rid of for a conditioned soul?
Well, most painful to get rid of. They're all painful to get rid of. A better question is, how do you not go? How do you? They're sequential. So how do you put the brakes on as the sequence is unfolding? So, and the answer is the first one. You know, that Prabhupada said many cases, you know, sincere and straightforward Vaishnava can easily progress on the path of bhakti. So one should vigilantly avoid being crooked, you know, saying one thing, doing another thing, or etc., etc., etc. All these examples. And it's a self-evaluation. Certainly others can evaluate if somebody is like that. But for self-purification and self-elevation, avoid that. That's the best way to curb the other 4. And if you want to, you're supposing he has advanced, go back to the first one. And, you know, check the first one. And by checking the first one, it can help deter the subsequent ones. Because the subsequent ones are resting upon the first one.
That's a wonderful answer, Maharaj. When I'm seeing it's a sequential, but 4th one is a slackening of bhakti, and the 5th one is pride.
Yeah, I see.
So I'm trying to understand, like, you know, slackening of bhakti happens once the pride is there, or is it other way around?
The other way around. So pride can happen, you know, from the outset. You know, Duryodhana, he wasn't a bhakta. He was very proud. So they're sequential, but it's so your question sequentially is, if supposing someone is not yet proud, that's a big supposition. But supposing someone is not yet proud, because everyone's proud. Prabhupada's statement: a pauper is proud of his penny. We're proud of whatever it is. We sell little something. We're proud of that little something, because it's the nature of the being in a conditioned state. But pride will escalate, and specifically pride in executing a bhakti escalates when bhakti slackens. You know, it's counterintuitive. That is, bhakti is slackening. Now I'm proud. I have pride in my bhakti.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes.
Guru Maharaj, What distinguishes the nature of faith in bhakti from other spiritual paths?
I try it again. I didn't get it.
What distinguishes the nature of faith in bhakti from other spiritual paths? Like an example, King Riga, it was a charity, it was a nice thing. But what was lacking there?
You understand what you're asking, but I don't.
Okay, I'll try again.
Try again.
In King Riga,
Can you give an example?
example, King Riga,
Okay.
yeah, he was doing the charity.
That's good.
Yeah, that was good. So why he was?
Because he was valuing that above bhakti. And that was in his heart. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. One can be charitable in devotion to the personality of Godhead. But in his case, he had greater faith, not in doing charity or other things for the satisfaction of the personality of Godhead. You know, what are people given charity for? Punya. What do they want punya for? Artha. Prosperity. That's what he wanted. So he was diminishing in his consciousness, diminishing the importance of bhakti. Thank you. So ask your question again.
I think it makes sense, but I would like to do follow-up.
Sure.
So how the faith is defined?
How is faith defined?
Yeah.
You must know. You know, and I have confidence that this is going to get me to where I want to go. Faith in the activities of bhakti is the goal I'll progress towards the goal because of these activities in bhakti. And it's not just the activities, it's the confidence in those activities, the confidence in the consciousness in executing those activities. I'll get to the goal. You know, it's like faith in, by eating, my appetite will be diminished. Three, you know, that example Prabhupada gives, 3 things by the process of eating. Hunger subsides, the sense of satisfaction is experienced, and you know that at some point you can say to the other person, they don't need to tell you you've had enough. You can tell them. You're feeling, you know, so there's a subjective experience, and faith, that there's the anticipation that by this process of eating, my hunger will go away. By the process of, by faith in something, there's going to be an outcome, and it's a predictable outcome. And I have faith in that. And it can be done again and again by n number of people over any period of time, and it's the same. So I have faith on that basis, and and that's is another way of saying, as Prabhupada is saying, therefore it's a spiritual science. It's not blind faith. So there's faith in Scripture, and because of the faith in Scripture, I have faith in what Scripture says. And Scripture says something, so I do that something with faith. But it's the confidence that is going to get me to where I want to go, to a place of higher consciousness, or whatever that is. Now you want to ask it again? You sure?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Yeah.
In the light of Mataji's question, I also had some like clarification to seek Guru Maharaj. Like Lord Chaitanya gave this example of the ashes of his or the Shraddha ceremony of his father in Gaya. And like we hear the explanation that he was showing by example that these certain things are important, and until and unless we become, we come on that platform of pure devotion, all these things or traditions are important. So, in the light of this question, on my level as a sadhaka, I might feel confused because my mind is seeking like a definite rule, probably that
Your mind is thinking what?
seeking a simple way to perform a definitive rule that okay, I just want to follow one thing, so I don't want to take care of traditions, and I understand that this understanding is not correct.
Right, that's not correct.
So how can I seek that clarity time to time when such things come in our life where it is just a tradition but not actually like
Choose
direct-
your words carefully, because I'm not sure where you're going with this.
No.
If you know something is from Scripture, not just the part of India that in which you grew up, we do like this, or something, not one of those kind of things, but something that's explicitly from Scripture. And we have faith in Scripture, therefore we have faith in what Scripture says is to be done or not to be done. And we do those things that are to be done with faith.
So in King Nraga's case, he was considering that this act of charity is higher than bhakti.
That was the confusion that he had in his heart. He was placing more emphasis on, and for a reason. He wanted the perks. He wanted the wealth and the prosperity and this and next life benefits.
Yes, Maharaj, that clarifies my doubt, because what is in my heart, that intention is that matters. Whether it is a bhakti intention or not.
Yes.
Yes, Maharaj.
Now, so let's take our 6 Goswamis, or your example, Lord Chaitanya, in the Shraddha ceremony for his father. He didn't need to do, but he was setting an example. So our great acharyas, Sanatana Goswami became so old, and it was difficult for him to keep his vratas. But I've made the vrata, I must. So Krishna came and provided him, a Govardhan Shila instead of circumambulating Govardhan Hill. When you're such an elevated devotee, then the Krishna will step in. But otherwise, you follow.
Thank you very much, Guru.
The platform of spontaneous devotion is where the vidhis of sadhana bhakti are not obligatory anymore. The purpose is now fulfilled because of having attained spontaneous devotion. Then there's symptoms of what spontaneous devotion is or looks like and feels like, subjectively and objectively. And unless and until one attains that stage, then we follow the vidhis. We must. There's no option. You must. But it's not the vidhis in and of themselves, which is your point, or the additional point. It's not do the do's and avoid the don'ts and the bell rings. Back home, back to Godhead. It's not mechanical. It's not causative. It's devotional. But because it's devotional doesn't mean they're optional. They're not optional. We must. And then make the spiritual connection properly, and then it carries one beyond the obligation. And then even beyond the obligation, one still does. And if there's some oversight and it doesn't happen for some reason or another, it's okay. Because that state of spontaneous devotion has been achieved. When that has been achieved, then it's okay. And otherwise, these examples given, King Nriga and other examples, there's consequences.
Thank you very much.
Raj, I have a question and a comment. The question is, in the story of King Shatadanu, who had this vrata to not speak, and then he ended up speaking to his martial arts teacher's friend. Is it true that we too, in our daily lives of trying to execute devotional service, may execute it improperly?
Yes.
And in his case, is it true that the greater offense or transgression was even when reminded by his wife,
Yeah.
he didn't heed to her
That's
nudge
right. That's right.
than the initial slip?
Yes. It adds to it. Because she had bhakti and he was ignoring the bhakti, reminder. Same to your point. We make slips, and somebody's standing next to us and taps us on the shoulder, and says, "You're heading for the ditch," and we just keep going to the ditch. There's consequences.
And my comment is on the root of the fall down, which is Kautilyam or crookedness. My thoughts are going to the verse that I find really interesting of how Prabhupada translates it. Tadvag visargo janata viplava. And he quotes it in every preface of each volume of the Bhagavatam. And the last line says, Shinvanti Gayanti Grinanti Sadhava. And the way Prabhupada translates sadhava is one who's
Perfectly honest.
thoroughly honest, is the word he uses, which seems like the opposite,
The opposite of.
of that.
Yes.
And I'm thinking a little bit more about this quality of thorough honesty. In my experience, Maharaj, it seems that sometimes to be thoroughly honest requires an inner strength, an inner courage that persons sometimes lack due to having, insecurities of some kind, looking for acceptance and belonging, and therefore conforming to certain speech and behavior that's not true. So maybe your comments or in response
Welcome
to
to the club. It's an obstacle. It's number one out of the list of 5, and it's pervasive. For reasons mentioned, and additional reasons. Bhakti is not sufficiently strong. And it just keeps bhakti insufficiently strong. It's a cause of fall down from bhakti. It's a little bit like this whole topic of pride and their degrees of envy. And the first one is not giving proper respect. The failure to respect is disrespect. It's an offense. Disrespect is an offense. So it can be, looked at more softly, the failure to, but there's consequence. It's an offense. So who doesn't do that? In the preliminary stages of bhakti, and below the topmost stages of bhakti, who doesn't do that? Then what are you going to do? Shrug your shoulders and keep rolling. But in addition, the antidote, acknowledging and then make the course correction.
Experiencing love from sadhus and the relationship, being sheltered in that relationship with sadhus, is that it gives us an anchor to be able to be honest.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's a free for all.
I don't have it with me. One of the little items I travel with is a little miniature USB, and one of the items that I retain, because I delete stuff when anyway, it's exactly this point. When there's affection towards Guru, and there's the affection of the Guru towards one who's carrying bhakti. And that's very powerful. The one who doesn't recognize his powerfulness doesn't, it may be extended, but one isn't feeling it. And then comes this compromise thing. And that's from Bhakti Sandarbha also, that the affection of Guru, not affection towards Guru, the affection of Guru. Nice.
Maharaj, what section of Bhakti Sandarbha is that?
I'll have to look it up. I'll send you the clip, then you can do the research yourself. But I don't have it with me right now. Anyone else? Couple up front.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. This week, we discussed, especially in the beginning of one devotional life, that a devotee will execute his devotional service under the three modes. So I was thinking, in my case, I might be doing, or I am doing both.
What both
the
means?
Bhakti Abhas and Abhas Aparadh as well. In a way,
Okay.
Even in Bharat Maharaj's case, he was until the stage of Bhava,
Yes.
and he did Abhas, that offense of
Abbas is not offense. Aparad is offense.
Aparadh. So, is it true that the Abhas Aparadh takes precedence over Bhakti Abhas in a way?
The language is too complicated for me. I'm just like a rookie. I don't understand this complicated language distinctions.
I'll try again.
Does somebody else in the room understand this distinction that he's making? Because I don't. You don't understand it either.
I'll try again.
Can you do it without the language?
Yes.
Like just like English.
Yeah, even though if I'm performing bhakti, but later on I made this aparadh.
You made an aparad, really?
So what is the condition? What is the situation of that person?
Well, they have consequences to meet for that aparad. And then they depend on how they respond to acknowledge, and then how they respond to the consequence. Depends. Because there's lots of paths. They can go this path, that path. The mind can take one quickly, different paths. So it comes back to what's the grounding force in you, or that individual. What's their place of shelter? Do they have one? And if they have one, you go to that place of shelter. And in that place of shelter, one is safe because it's a place of shelter, and one can then be more honest with oneself and what to speak of with others, but starting being honest with oneself in that place of shelter. So it's a very important place, the place of shelter. And value it and improve it and polish it and, let it sustain all that you do progressively more and more and more and more. That place of shelter. Or places, can be plural. For example, some people it's the holy name. Some people it's their deity. Some persons it's the Bhagavatam. Some persons it's different somethings or combinations of some things. But just using that phrase, place of shelter, that which is it's a little bit like this question of what is faith. What was the definition of faith? A place where Krishna is there, and I feel that connection with Krishna there, and I value that feeling of connection with Krishna. So I like to go there and feel that connection. And feeling connected, then I'm ready for anything. Good, bad, and ugly, no problem. Because I have my place of shelter. I have that connection with Krishna, that palpable sense of connectedness. That connectedness can be, the path to get there can be for many different people different things, but it's one thing. And some people are very fortified and have multiple channels to that place of shelter. And that's, a mature Vaishnav. The language is right there in Bhagavad Gita, where even the greatest calamity, one is not disturbed. That's an advanced stage. So it may not be so advanced for one devotee or another, but you cultivate that, and that's where advancement is derived from. A place of shelter. Something else behind you, yeah.
Raj, a couple of comments, and I'm requesting if you would like to speak something about it. Yesterday morning's class, you were saying that a learned person is always learning.
Mm.
And these two classes of Jiva Goswami, it seems like for our acharyas, writing is part of their process.
Yes.
Of learning and contending with arguments on both sides. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is commenting on Jiva Goswami's commentary, and it just seems like such a vivacious process, this dynamic process of, through their writing, they're experimenting with the truth and bringing it forward. It's very enlivening to dive into these verses that you've been sharing.
Such persons, they're experiencing the dynamic of their intrinsic relationship with Krishna, and then many things are being revealed to them as they're writing. It's like Prabhupada saying Krishna wrote these books. Now, That's, it's a nice statement, but that was his expression. So he would sit and listen to his own books, and that person's reading his books with an ear of a writer, like maybe something needs to be edited or something like that. That kind of an ear, but also that this is Krishna. And he would openly and honestly say, in that first volume, there were many discrepancies, grammatical discrepancies. But I made my best effort. And some grammatical discrepancies were found, and they were edited out, and so therefore he wanted editors. And one could one could say he doesn't need an editor. He doesn't need an editor, thank you. But he wanted an editor. He wanted editors and gave them boundaries. And then scolded them if they went beyond their boundaries. Anyway, yeah.
Gururaj, for me, there has been a theme in hearing from you this week, beginning with Gitanagari, where something that really shook me was noting how Akrura, even though he's a pure devotee, and even though he's serving Krishna, he has impacts on other devotees, and that's an offense. And then your class yesterday on respect and stages of envy, and today with the fall down and offenses. So I'm thinking Krishna consciousness is
Razor's edge.
simple but not easy. It's a razor's edge. And so in one sense, I could say, this is too difficult.
No.
But in another sense, I mean, the entire material world is a razor's edge. So which battle do I choose? I would rather choose this. And I'm thinking
There's no choice. That doesn't go anywhere.
Yes.
What's the benefit? Even, the skyscraper building or whatever you achieve, it's nasty, and it's, dukkhalayam shashvatam. There's no lasting benefit at all. There's no choice. So if there's a razor's edge, then you use the razor. And be careful while you're using it, because you can cut yourself. That's Prabhupada's example, and it's true. But it's not really a choice.
And when I hear these examples of devotees, I think, what are the chances that with my level of refinement and consciousness, I could actually navigate relationships or my relationship with the holy name?
Well, that, I mean, you'll say openly, your shortcomings, and people don't have to bash you to remind you of your shortcomings. You have come to understand what at least to some degree, and the direction of what those shortcomings are. And as you go, there's more, and there's more, and there's more, and there's more, and there's more. It's like, but so that doesn't mean you're it's hopeless. It just means keep going. When is keep going? When are you done? That was the starting point. If you send me a little text message as a reminder, I don't think I'll forget, but there's a series of exactly what you just said, distributed by Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj to people that hear from him, saying exactly that. And then with images. He has, he's a visual person as well as an auditory person. So I'll forward that to you. And he's, it's a thoughtful individual, It's just humility and honesty. And one who has those qualities, you never stop learning. You never become the point where the bell rings and I've nothing more to learn. No such thing. And now back to this crookedness, you don't pretend otherwise. It's quite okay to say I'm growing as you're growing. It's okay. That's honesty. On the platform, just a comment on a way that you characterize Jiva Goswami's writings. It's flowing through his writings, like that very nice explanation that Hari Parshad gave about the mind, which is material, can act as an instrument of spirit by being transformed. So that's the writings of these great acharyas. They're not sadhakas, they're siddhas. And by that act of writing, then the door is now opened by that act of writing for Krishna to write through the siddha, to the perfect person. And then they feel, wow, Krishna's really expressing something wonderful here. And it's not them. They're the pen that's moving across the page. And therefore Krishna's using me as his pen to express what he wants. I'm not taking credit for it. I'm just the instrument. That's nice. It's not the same, but it's a little bit like Sanatana Goswami requesting Jiva Goswami to edit his 10th canto commentary. And Jiva Goswami's reply was, because you're asking, you don't need an editor. But because you're asking as a service, I'll do as a service. And then he did as a service, and doesn't say whether he edited anything he wrote, but he wrote a commentary on his commentary as, a natural expression of his being a writer for Krishna, along with an editor. Something else? Yeah?
Maharaj, I was, because Rupa Goswami also writes about the 6 anarthas that stop the
Yes,
bhakti.
yes.
Is that something that a good way to understand? To come to the bhakti, those are the 6 things that
To come to the what?
To come to bhakti, those 6 things prohibits, and after coming to bhakti, these are the 5 things which causes a downfall.
To make that correlation, I'd have to think carefully about it before saying yes or no or maybe.
Okay. My initial question was, is there a correlation? That's what I want to
Yeah,
understand.
and it, I'd have to think carefully about it because it's easier to say yes or no without really having given careful thought, and I don't like to do that. So I'd have to give some careful thought. And a comment, however, this is now Jiva Goswami's writing and Bhaktivinoda Thakur's underlining his writing. And that is, of the 6, one is the most pernicious, the most difficult, and that's envy. And it's everything that's the foundation of this whole topic of respect. Because Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, the exact opposite of love is envy. So what's envy? It's, you're a competitor to the object. And I feel these feelings of competition, or he's standing in the way of my getting to be what I want to be. I want to be numero uno, and there's somebody else that's already number one. So I'm envious. And then that envy permeates other relationships and other things, and other opulences and so forth. I'm a dancer, and somebody's like a superlative dancer, so I'm envious. But but that's absent in the spiritual world. No such thing. No such thing. The other five are there in a transcendental way. They're there, but that one is absent. That's the teaching of Jiva Goswami, at least, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, at least. It's absent completely. No envy. There's no transcendental envy. It doesn't exist in the spiritual realm. No place for it. Yeah. I was
Hare Krishna
hoping you'd
Maharaj.
ask a question or two.
I have a couple of comments and a question. As going back to the first point you made about the simplicity part, I guess my takeaway is that I want to be true to myself. So that's one thing I want to mention, and I want to invite your thoughts on that. And the example I was also remembering was, I'm not sure if I'm getting the name right, but Mukunda Datta, when he was, he was in a very lavish surrounding, and when Gadadhar Pandit saw him, and then
It was Pundarik Vidyanidhi.
I'm sorry, Pundarika Vidyanidhi, pardon me. And then when the devotional verses in Srimad Bhagavatam were recited, he fell into spontaneous devotional ecstasy. So that basically came as an example for myself that one could be in opulence, so to speak, but they could still be simple.
It was a disguise. He wanted to conceal his superiority, so he put on a disguise of being a gross materialist.
I see. Thank you, Maharaj.
But Mukunda Datta knew he's not a gross materialist. I'll show you. So he was the singer. Mukunda sang the verses.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. And then, going back to my first takeaway about being true to myself. So the one thing
That can mean different things, by the way.
yeah,
being,
exactly.
Being true to yourself can be cuckoo land.
So one thing that I keep reflecting on is that this being true to myself is something that I find really important, and I think it basically fits right into the first point about being simple, because that's a place for me to start. And then the thing that I'm a little apprehensive about is that it could easily devolve into something like an impersonal realization rather than something in relationship with Krishna.
Well, that's not being true to yourself.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Got it. Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. We're done. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.